Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music. But as I also like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today, we are here, Studio One, the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society. It's a real pleasure to talk with a musician from Austin, sort of a family friend as well, Zach Simon Alexander. Zach, thanks so much for taking the time to come over today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a magnet almost. The other night we were at this party, actually for Zach's mom's birthday.
Yeah.
And just kind of saw you in the kitchen, and I didn't remember meeting you that many times before or anything.
No, in passing, probably at a Jane party or when I'm back in town with the family and friends. And yeah, you're right on. It was like you walked in the kitchen just to drop something off, and we just started talking like nothing else was going on. So
I know, and it was all about music. I'm like, wait a second, so we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why we're here. We tend to just follow where the universe leads. So you're living down in Austin now.
Yeah, I moved down there a little over 6 years ago with my now wife, Ashley. Nice. We got engaged while we lived in Austin and married last year. So life, music, everything's moving quickly,
Yeah, it's such a cool place. I've been a couple of times. I was there for a Victor Wooten show in April.
Right. Yeah.
Such a wild place. It's just a wild place.
I was away for that one. I was very sad to miss it, but I'm glad that friends got to see it because he's a really, really special dude.
Yeah, and he was talking about the Wooten Woods experience, and it was just cool. I went to a couple of his camps last year. But anyway, so how did, so you're a musician now, but how did you get to be a musician? I mean, do you remember a time when you were young when music kind of called out? Did you start playing guitar or some other instrument? Did you take lessons? I mean, how did you kind of get into this gig?
It's interesting because I grew up all around music. My parents were deadhead, classic rock, classical music. My mom was a music teacher, an elementary school music teacher for 30 plus years. So it's been all around me my whole life. We grew up in a Sikh community with a lot of chanting, and my mom would play guitar and piano and have hand drums around. So it was all around me. But for whatever reason, even when I took viola in third grade, did about 6 months of piano in fourth grade, it was always in front of me, and I was always chasing other things and finding, my fit in the world and going through school and changing schools. And there was just always kind of this forward movement that was good in some ways, but not necessarily by choice. And fast forward all the way through after playing sports and doing school and graduating high school in Bethesda, my parents got me my first acoustic guitar as my graduation present, and that was the start of all the trouble. So up until that point, I really had not realized or accepted that music, was my world.
Wow, isn't that interesting? And your mom, of course, is a fabulous yoga teacher, has a yoga studio, and plays. And I interviewed her about music and yoga. It seems like forever ago. But so, had you given any indication to them that you were thinking about guitar, or?
I think it was more of them giving an indication to me that I was supposed to be playing some music. And supposed to is a strong word. We're all independent. My parents are very open and supportive of whatever path my sister and I were on at any given time. They're always supportive of where we were at, not so much where they wanted us or needed us to be. But yeah, it was more of a signal in a sense, even subconsciously, like this is what your life is calling for. And they knew better than I did, for sure. They
could kind of sense it.
Yeah, I think, I was kind of wrapping up a sports career that I had dedicated a ton of time to, and was a huge part of my life and loved it, made a lot of friends, learned teamwork and all that. In high school. Yeah. And I don't regret things in general, but I do wish, maybe I picked up music earlier and was just invested in my teenage years. It would have been a different experience, but my process now has been organically intertwined, with my music process, my life process and my music process, and they really fuel each other. And the more I commit to it, the more I realize I'm making these connections outside of myself too, because I'm actually investing in who I am and not just what I think I need to be doing or feeling.
Yeah. So what was that like when you got a guitar?
Yeah.
And
So
you went into your room and you're like, what
do I do with this thing? Because, a lot of my friends played music and were either in bands or messed around, on weekends. And I was just always playing sports. I wasn't getting involved in music in that way, like I mentioned. And, at first it was like kind of being befuddled. Like, I know I love this and I know it's exciting to me, but like, whoa, my world kind of just changed, right? Like, I have this new thing that's in front of me. And I happened to be going to school then. My college career was interesting. I transferred a couple times, just really was done being in school, but really wanted to accomplish that goal and just, get my degree and move through that process and then move on to my world beyond that. In my first few years of college, with a lot of just like struggle and depression and different things, I started tinkering around more with the guitar. And, in my dorm, people would be like, oh, he plays guitar, let's hang out. And I wasn't very confident with it. I wasn't that invested in it, like physically and emotionally outside of my time spent on it. I wasn't connected quite yet. It was more towards the end of college, when I was in Colorado. I had transferred out to Boulder. I was living up in Chautauqua, the national park right below the Flatirons. It was winter. I was by myself like 90% of the time, unless I was going down in the snow to class and then coming back. And I really enjoyed the solitude, and I actually started writing in my room on my own, some of the first thoughtful songs I was making. Before that, it was just kind of learning structures and things. But Boulder, towards the end of school, is really when I actually started writing from my heart and from my soul, and realizing that it took me a while to get to this point where I'm more confident in myself and more comfortable with who I am, and I actually like believe and feel what it is I want out of the world. Whereas before I was just observing it from a distance. And I think without music, without having that guitar, without my parents knowing me beyond what I was willing to know myself at the time, that this would have been a longer and more troublesome process to get to a place of some peace and tranquility in my world.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So it really sort of changed, in a sense, in Boulder toward the end of college.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I just had more time and space to myself, and realized that to be what I felt I was and to be who I felt I was, out of my family background and all that kind of stuff, I needed to reach a little deeper and actually allow myself to express some of the things I hadn't said out loud or hadn't written about. And so it was the first time I committed to myself and to music in a way that was like real and deep.
So it was not just sort of saying, okay, I love music, I really want to do this. It was a real internal decision about your attitude about life in general and what you wanted to do and all that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was. And, I can't say it was entirely conscious like that, but there was just something just kept me playing more and writing more, even though I didn't know where it intertwined with my world and my struggles, my personal struggles, just emotions growing up, going through college, not feeling like I fit in the system of schooling and, our country. And without getting into all that educational talk, just, it's not really my world, the standardized education world. And I've had foregone or had ignored a lot of these creative urges and vibes because people around me were very creative and I was used to supporting them and loving what they did, and I just didn't really look or find what was my thing, right? I just wasn't available to it. So for some reason, being in Colorado, being in the mountains, being in the snow, and just having almost like a forced, in a way, solitude just to kind of let go of things and erase the character that had existed and just actually, sort of melt down into a puddle and then reform into whatever structure I am now. Without guitar and music, like I said, it would have been a much bigger struggle, and I feel like I wouldn't have had the right tools with me to continue learning how to build more tools and how to use those tools and how to share those tools with other people building their houses and, that proverbial sense. So it was a pretty crazy cerebral time in that way, where for the first time I was like, wow, I actually wrote a song. It actually said how I feel, and somebody actually said they liked it, and it's like, this is me. It's not just me putting out music or some physical CD or anything like that. Like, people reacted to what I was sharing, not what I needed them to hear or what I wanted them to hear. And I try to write that way. You know, I go through my personal experiences. I've had a number of songs and times where I write a song, I'm not exactly sure why or what exactly it's about, and then a year, 2 years later, I'm like, oh wow, that's what it's about. Like, I just dealt with that, and if I hadn't given myself up and written the song just freely, you know, I might not have hit this moment of clarity right here. It's just like these weird cycles of commitment and like letting go. It's very mindful in a way. So you mentioned yoga and music. It's all kind of intertwined in our spiritual journey to me. And it definitely has been in mine. Pretty
profound. Wow. So you might even say music helped you find your center or yourself.
I absolutely would say that. In the simplest form, I think it allowed me to step past my own confines and barriers because there was something bigger than me on the other side of it, you know. So I could just kind of put myself down and step through naked, in a sense, into that world. And it's just kind of progressed like a snowball avalanche, however you want to describe it. It's the more and more I commit to it, the more it amplifies, the more and more I open myself up to the world around me, musically and personally, the more I find that filling up, you know, the more I fill up other people with what I'm trying to share, the more it comes back around. So to the point of your whole Planetary Gig Society, that was part of the first 2 minutes of you starting to talk about it. I was like, I get it. Like, I'm here with that, you know? So.
Wow, that's so great. So it not just, you know, it kind of happened in a certain time, but it just continues to expand out and continues to change. And
yeah.
So, I mean, you've kind of just said this, but I'll ask it in a way. I mean, so since then, I mean, what else have you noticed? I mean, you're pretty. Any other things to talk about? It's just so powerful what's happened.
Yeah, you know, I'm still figuring it out like anybody else. What I can say, you know, to that point is that just letting go and not trying to control everything and not trying to articulate everything perfectly, but at the same time honoring this craft that is an outlet for my perfectionism. You know, some of my best creations are because I'm demanding, because I expect a lot, because I'm hard on myself and want to get the right energy. You know, I think of it more like I'm a conduit of whatever's floating around us, and I'm the translator. So yeah, it's my song. I wrote it as for my experience, but I try to write in an available sense to other people, to where the story isn't A or B. It's a lesson that I've learned, and I hope it's valuable to other people. And it's really just kind of transformed my perspective as I've grown up with that, and vice versa. I think my perspective has started to transform my music into a more dynamic sound as well.
It sounds like a lot of what you have kind of come to be about is sharing then.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been a helper. I've always been someone who likes to see other people kind of do what they love to do, and to the point where, you know, people told me this and I didn't realize, I didn't listen, but like I stretched myself way too thin, and I was excited to help everybody I could help, all my friends and family start their businesses. And then I found myself at, you know, 26, 27, not playing sports, not quite feeling confident with music, didn't have any money, wasn't fully into my serious relationship, just getting going with Ashley at that point. And, you know, there were teases and previews of a life that was coming together, but I was pretty isolated, both emotionally and just cerebrally on the whole, in my world, because I hadn't invested in myself. And like, out of everything else, besides all the advocacy for like music that I would directly give to people, I'm always advocating for people to pick up instruments, etc. But beyond that, just advocating for people to dig deeper and listen to themselves and not have to have the answers, but instead maybe just ask questions and write and draw and play in the dirt, like things that we do as kids that maybe we didn't invest enough time in
Yeah.
because we weren't conscious of it, and you still have the opportunity. A lot of people think it's passed them by, or money, or job struggles, things like that. It's all very real, and we feel for people these days. But it's never the wrong time to express your reality and share your lessons with people. So
Yeah, and to open up, and I mean, you've said all this so well, but it when I picked up, first realized I had been fooling around with harmonica kind of on and off during my life, and finally realized, blues harmonica. It was just like, whoa. And it's clearly changed my life,
Yeah, it was really fun hearing you play with our little folk troupe the other night at the party.
It's kind of an amazing thing. So, and that wasn't quite the last decision here. I mean, you kind of had to decide also, I assume you were working this job or that job or whatever you were doing.
Yeah.
You had to make a decision to be a professional musician, right?
Yeah,
is that what you've done? Was that the decision, or what?
That is, I haven't said it out loud, but now a couple years into having started a band, and I do sometimes get paid for music, contrary to popular belief, they pay us in pennies, but it's still money. So it's, working on that aspect. But, yeah, I mean, there's nothing quite like not knowing and investing in something emotionally that you just trust your gut and you just think it's right, and you just know in your heart that no matter what falls apart or changes or accelerates around you, good and bad, like sometimes you just have to dive into something you really believe in, whatever it is. And music was one of those things. I had put it off. I moved to Austin, about 6 years ago, and I wasn't even playing as much as I should have been. I wasn't really like jamming as much with people. I was still kind of in and out of some depression and self-doubt and self-criticism, and I'm my hardest critic like a lot of artists, and I didn't deal with those emotions or realize I was letting those things consume me until I felt entrapped by them. And that didn't stop my music, but I was also not really giving myself to it, and I realized that the more I just let go and dive in, at least I'll find out if I'm good enough, if I care enough, if I'm going to show up enough. And I've done all those things. So to me, it was the right decision. And, I'm pursuing a career in music, multifaceted, live music, production, soundtracking, things like that. I want to do a lot of different things, but I'm trying to start humbly with a smaller vision and just accomplish those steps along the way. So
well, it's pretty brave too. It's given you a lot of benefits. That. I can tell you're very confident about it and feel good about it, but it's not easy, really.
No, that's for sure. I just got married this year. We don't own a house. I don't really have money right now, and we're chugging along. We're making progress. We have a small business. I'm doing music. I'm home late a lot of the time. My wife is super cool about it, but it definitely eats at things at times. So it's being aware of that, knowing to be humble, because any day, I could break my finger and not play guitar or whatever. Or she could get sick and I got to skip practice or whatever. Like, things happen. And so to be okay with those obstacles and roadblocks in music, and to know that my heart's in it. And so almost like nothing, band interpersonal bullshit, booking bullshit, all that kind of stuff, where either there's a clash, there's stuff going on, or a lot of promoters and venues around Austin don't pay well and are looking for free acts, which really hurts the music community. And so there are all these things that are reflective of life and the struggles we go in, as simple as tripping over a root. One time I was on the Billy Goat Trail back here at home. I went for a trail run, and as a lot of people do, in the last 30 feet of the trail, I stepped on a rock and really hurt my ankle because I was just not focused. And I find that those things will happen anytime you're kind of disconnected, or these little signals come, whether it's injury or it's just missing a bus or whatever. And so I'm finding that those in life and those in music have kind of become one and the same, and it's almost made me more resilient to obstacles on the whole, because I don't care. Like, yes, emotionally I care, and I'm going to deal with interpersonal stuff. I'm not going to ignore it or blow it off like it doesn't count, but I don't care at my core if it's not moving forward, and if it's not positive energy or real energy at the times where it needs to be bad, but actually investigating those emotions and things. I find that my life obstacles and music obstacles have almost become completely parallel in a strange, universal way. So committing to it and just letting go of me and just doing what the sound calls for has really put my ego in check too, in a lot of ways, and just knowing my limitations, not worrying.
Yeah, a lot of life lessons too in music. I mean, you know, they talk about sort of that crippling self-doubt that you have, you know. I'm like, oh my God, I'll never get this. You know, you sort of think, but then, you know, if you persist and intend to do it, you can do it. So what's kind of this type of songs, the type of, you know, work or music that you're doing now and kind of focusing on, and you see yourself doing in the future?
Well, that's a good question. I have a lot of answers. You know, being that it's still relatively new in my life and career as being a quote-unquote musician and really writing well at this point, I know I write well enough that people enjoy what I'm doing and give me good feedback and are excited or challenged by my music. You know, not everyone has to like it, but I want it to invoke some energy, whatever that is. I want to do different types of music. I want to explore the different genres without getting too discombobulated and too lacking in focus. I have a lot of ground I've never covered that I want to cover. But the core of my songwriting comes from folk and songwriting and storytelling. And from there, whether I start with lyrics or whether I start with a MIDI keyboard with a little beat or some keys or a real piano or a guitar or a bass, any of them, I just like to kind of let something fall out and then see what I'm chasing, what I'm running with, what my partner is in that particular crime, so to speak. So it's hard to answer. I have a lot of answers. I want to do it all. But if I could sum it up, it would be songwriting and storytelling through some hybrid of the genres where they fit. You know, I'm not necessarily going to mix 10 things together at once, but I might try. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But definitely rock and folk centric. A lot of blues. You mentioned blues.
Yeah.
That's the earliest memory I have now of anything that would come close to that attraction to music that I wasn't present to recognize at the time would be the blues. Folk writing and the blues coming together in a way that's like just real life and emotion and real heart put on the sleeve, you know. Not all music hits that the same. Not to diminish any other genre, but blues is just like, comes from a deeper humanity than I think what a lot of industry music comes from. And it's no surprise that blues typically isn't like the chart type music.
Right.
It's not this facetious shopping mall type music that wins on the charts because it's simple and it's regurgitated, and not to knock any of that. Whatever people enjoy, it's for them. More power to them. But to me, I'm after the depth. I'm after the unknown. I'm after the unattainable, because I'll chase it for other people and bring back what I can find, you know, like Jacques Cousteau or like an astronaut or something.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's really cool. So, you know, you've been through this process and you know, taken it very seriously. You're interested in music, desire to keep playing. Are there thoughts you have about for other people? You know, I mean, you mentioned you tell people, you know, you can pick up an instrument. It's not too late, that sort of thing. But you know, how have you maybe seen the power of music in other people or in other places, or what would you tell people based on what you know now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Directly and to a fault, I will tell everyone and their mother that they could be good at some instrument or singing. And oftentimes they're like, "Oh, that's not for me. That's too much." And I respect that. You know, sometimes I can come off strong in that way. I'm really passionate about it. But I also believe that it's not just like, "Oh, you should play music." It's like, you are talking about how you love guitar or you love music. I'll give you free lessons. Like, I don't even make any money right now. But to the point of your podcast, the more people playing music, the more people writing their own stories and expressing themselves, even just privately on paper, the edge comes off. The perspective opens up. And it doesn't mean we get it all right, but I mean, putting the demanding energy aside of everybody around me needing to pick up an instrument. That's more just where it comes from emotionally. But in terms of advocating for people to be involved in or listen to music, I would tell people to listen to stuff they think they might hate, or listen to stuff that they're not sure about or that other people listen to, not because it's popular in some other circle, but because we as humans are very habitual creatures. We get ingrained in what we do. We get ingrained in even our psyches, the thought process, and we compound those things without realizing it. And sometimes with realizing it. I definitely did in both ways. So just using music as a medium, or let's say as a new, almost like a dream world, a dream state, to go and expand your limitations mentally, emotionally, reaching outside of your comfort zone in a way that really can only help you. In a way, I'm hesitant to say that because it feels safe, but for some people, they're not willing to take those risks physically or in jobs or wherever else. And the power that comes out of music and out of trying things that you don't think you'll like, or even don't like, just to experience them, that's like at the core of where my heart is in music, is just wanting people, like, again, you don't have to like my music, but I hope that even if you don't, it turns you on to somebody else who you love and follow and support, and maybe yourself. So
yeah, interesting point about the being safe, because if I'm learning a song and I don't completely know it and I play it and then I screw it up, there's that, oh god,
inevitable
that sort of thing. But if you do start a song and you're playing a song and you can do it, that does feel pretty safe, and it's like a huge lesson, something that I couldn't do before. Like, I had no idea. The first time I sat down to try to sing and play guitar at the same time, I couldn't make a noise with my mouth. My brain was not doing that.
I definitely feel that. Still to this day, if I try and talk while my mind is on music, I'm like at quarter speed, and whatever comes out may be gibberish, so
but then it changes, and then you find, actually, another point I'll just make from my perspective, being older, is one of the things I thought is, people, they're talking about this, Einstein games and things you should do to keep your mind sharp, or eat some kind of pharmaceutical that they just discovered from jellyfish or whatever it is. I thought, well, what better way to try to keep your mind sharp and improve, and it really does, I think, expand your brain power, in a sense, is to learn songs and try to learn music. It's hard. Learning the neck of the guitar, oh my God, it's hard. Especially
when you've heard a song forever, but then you look at the notes or the guitar chords or the lyrics and you're like, what? Like, I never actually thought about this or looked at it. And so you not only having the physical and mental challenge of piecing together this puzzle, but you're also like in shock emotionally. You're just like, what is happening here? And so it's like this all-encompassing challenge that you're talking about. I definitely feel that.
Yeah. It also is, I was thinking about, I was listening to some Ozark Mountain Daredevils music the other day. And
I don't know if I know them.
Well, they were a bunch of hippies got together and I think lived in some houses together and made a bunch of music. And or anybody who's making music, it's like, amazing. How do they do that? How do they come up with this? And I think people really do have an admiration for musicians. It can be a little scary. How do they do that? Oh, they're talented. They kind of say it's talented, but I think it's really work. I think it's hard work and intention and dedication to it. I mean, it's hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes it just falls out easy sound-wise, but there's always some challenge around the corner, whether it's with working with people or trying to write the perfect melody or whatever, as big or small as that could be. There's always some hidden challenge around the corner. And as funny as it is, we were talking about safety before. Part of the compelling confidence I'm finding in my path in music, which has not been my MO for my life. I've been capable. I've always worked hard and pushed really hard to be good at things and to achieve these challenges in sports or school.
Teaches you some of that too.
Yeah, to just keep grinding in a way.
Yeah.
but in a sense, you know, it can teach you it blindly too. And I'm finding in music that safety is not what I'm after. Again, back to that point, it's like the secret challenge around the corner that might attack me or that I might just, you know, walk into is like what's exciting to me. And we definitely take some of that energy into my rock band Lunar Eclectic too in Austin. We write songs. I write a lot of the songs, and they're written. Most of the ones we've done that are mine were written on acoustic, either in a recording session where I went in to test sound and do a different song, and I was like, oh, I like that, and ran with it. Yeah. Or just like from a kind of folk-hearted background, and then we've turned them into like Pink Floyd-esque, you know, classic rock, like operas and like big, huge, sweeping rock songs. Wow. And it's just wild how much of an expanse there is in music in that way. And like, I don't know, the safety is in like not being too critical of yourself in a negative way, but not being content, like just not, I don't know, I'm just hungry to keep learning and expanding. And I've never felt that in the same way that I do with music, but I'm also now starting to feel that inside of me as a human outside of music, which is really where the transformative properties of like committing to some music or listening deeply or just investing more into music and sound, beyond even songwriting, like just sound on the whole, nature, whatever else, like just being present with that has permeated my defenses, and I'm now helpless to the musical path, if I could say.
It's awesome. It's so awesome, Zach. So you kind of, I ask people, what can we do to, you know, tap into the power of music and help make a better world, bring peace or whatever. And you know, there's a lot of small steps. And one of the things you said, I think, is one of those things, which is if you're not playing music, pick it up, try it, do it. But other things that you think about, I mean, you know, just any other thoughts you might have about any of this? And
yeah, I guess just kind of wrapping all those thoughts and philosophies and experiences together, what I've found is, at least in myself, I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm literally seeing physical and energetic manifestations of this around me. I would imagine in large part due to my, you know, refreshed commitment to myself and my life and music and all that stuff. But I've never been an overly confident person or someone who, you know, we were talking about like believing in yourself earlier, or mentioned something along those lines. I would describe my experience as I've never had a doubt in my life that I could accomplish something or overcome a challenge or help somebody with a problem. My struggle has been in doubting myself day to day and holding myself back from that exponentially powerful belief and knowledge that there is nothing that I or we can't do. In relative terms, you know, I'm not going to be 6'5", but like my energy can be, right? So it's like not that height matters, but it's I'm just finding that as I've committed to the thing that speaks most to me in this world and investigated that actively and been curious about it and become confident, believing in myself hasn't been the issue, but speaking positively and uplifting myself day to day and believing in my day to day, not just the big vision, has been more of a struggle for me. And in meeting that somewhere, not trying to fix it or break it or, you know, heal it entirely in one breath, but like just meeting it for the conversation is just something I think music has been that bridge for me, between myself and the other myself that I was like disconnected from, you know, my deeper self. And so believing in that and having no doubts about it and just pushing forward and just being myself now, which was hard for a long time. I don't know why and I don't know how, but I just wouldn't allow myself to be. I am now in so many ways, and the effects of it have been tangible, have been observable, have been energetic. Like, there's just no doubt in my mind at this point that when I turned on the switch and said, I'm not going to hold myself down anymore, I'm not going to pretend to be who I'm not going to doubt myself, I'm not going to speak to myself that way, I started to see other people without even knowing who I am or what my music is. Like before a show, if I'm in that mindset, people know that I'm available to them. I don't even have to say anything because I'm invested in that energy. And that's what I think we're doing as musicians, as artists, is finding a way to double down on who we are, believing that if we're ourselves, if we invest in that, if we really live that fully, people feel that, they see that, and a lot of people need that. And I needed it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was inspired by a lot of musicians and artists, and here I am following suit, you know, like the guy seeing a violin at 3 and just being like, I have to do that. You know, there's some energy, we don't make the rules, but like, don't fight what's in front of you if it's really pushing you. I mean, that's what you are, and I've seen the results. I've seen both ends of that spectrum, and this one is, as much as I could describe, it's the truth. That's it.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. Well, you know, and it's very inspiring and profound and you know, insightful. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. You know,
these
thank
thoughts
you for having me.
About your musical trajectory, and we'll look forward to, you know, seeing what's going on in a while. So the name of your band was
Lunar Eclectic, out of Austin.
Lunar Eclectic. And do you have any websites or Facebook pages?
We have a
Facebook
anything? Page for that band, Facebook and an Instagram. And I also have my own Instagram and a music page that's for later, you know, just building foundations and putting little tracks on there. But my primary band is Lunar Eclectic. I'm working on my solo album as well, and working on home recordings, which are coming together slowly but surely. Teaching myself recording to articulate what it is I do, you know. So there's always more to learn, but those are my main gigs right now, and just really focusing on my stuff and my band stuff, and it's all moving. So
well, fabulous. So people could check out Lunar Eclectic and, you know, and your Facebook page. So Zach Simon Alexander, thanks very much. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you.
You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.